I didn't cry when my parents told me they weren't coming to my graduation. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just stared at the wall and listened as they explained they'd already booked a resort trip with my sister. That moment should have broken me. Instead, it clarified everything. So I made a different call. The phone pressed hard against my ear, warming my skin as I stood in the center of my cramped Austin apartment. The cheap refrigerator hummed, filling the dead space on the line. My mother's voice vibrated through the speaker. Light, casual, and completely unbothered. She was explaining how my older sister, Brooke, desperately needed a content creation trip to Cabo, a luxury beach getaway. That exact weekend, the very same weekend as my tech fellowship gala, an event I had sacrificed 2 years of my life to reach, Brooke was stressed. My mother insisted. Brooke needed the right aesthetic to secure brand deals. My graduation, the fellowship, the sleepless nights of coding, all of it was just background noise to them. It was a minor scheduling inconvenience, easily brushed aside to make room for the golden child. My mother paused, her silence expectant. She was waiting for the predictable script to play out. She wanted the part where I beg, the part where I plead with my own mother to care, trying to convince her that my monumental life achievements actually matter. I swallowed the heavy, suffocating lump forming in my throat. I squeezed my eyes shut for a fraction of a second, grounding my feet into the cheap linoleum floor. When I opened my eyes, my voice came out flat, cold, and entirely empty. Enjoy the beach? I hung up the phone and dropped it onto the counter. The screen went black, mirroring the sudden, sharp clarity in my chest. An hour later, the screen lit up again. A text message from my mother illuminated the dark kitchen. She was not just calling to cancel her attendance. She had a demand. Brooke was not just stressed about her aesthetic. Brooke was secretly drowning in massive credit card debt. My sister had just been evicted from her luxury downtown loft after blowing her final rent money on this Cabo trip to fake a wealthy lifestyle online for her non-existent followers. My mother's text laid out the plan with staggering entitlement. Pack your apartment this weekend. Transfer your lease to Brooke immediately. Sleep on Olivia's couch for a few months. Family helps family. I read the words twice. The harsh blue light glaring against my retinas. My chest tightened, not with sorrow, but with a cold. Terrifying rage. They did not look at me and see a daughter. They looked at me and saw an appliance. A machine you simply unplug and shove into a dusty storage closet the moment the golden child requires more floor space. My mind flashed back to a freezing Tuesday night 7 years ago. 17 years old, shivering under the flickering fluorescent lights of a greasy roadside diner. My feet throbbed in cheap shoes after standing for a 10-hour shift. I was saving every crumpled, grease-stained dollar bill in a shoebox just to buy a refurbished laptop for my high school coding classes. I asked my parents for a $50 loan to cover the tax. They told me to learn the value of hard work. The very next morning, a brand new silver sedan sat parked in our driveway with a massive red bow on the hood, a spontaneous gift for Brooke, simply because she managed to pass her sophomore college classes without failing. They laughed, hugged her, and tossed her the keys while I walked 2 miles to the bus stop in the rain. They broke me back then. But today, my fingers rest on a custom mechanical keyboard worth more than that silver sedan. Today, I am the sole owner and architect of a proprietary software platform generating massive revenue. hidden entirely in the shadows, far away from their greedy reach. Today, I am the one holding the hammer. I closed the text thread without typing a single letter in response. I opened my encrypted secure drive. The official incorporation documents from my software company loaded onto the high-resolution monitor. 2 years ago, when I was surviving on instant ramen noodles and coding until my vision doubled, 2 people actually showed up. Hannah and Mark Reynolds, the parents of my best friend, Olivia. When my biological family ignored my existence, Hannah and Mark bought my first dedicated servers. They set a permanent plate for me at their dining room table every single Sunday. They gave me a quiet desk in their sunroom to work. They did not share my blood, but they shared their home. I am not a person who forgets a debt. Back when my company was just an idea on a whiteboard, I drafted official legal paperwork. I carved out a 20% equity stake in my startup and legally bound it to Hannah and Mark Reynolds, listing them as official seed backers and board advisors. I never told my biological parents. I never breathed a single word of my success inside their house because they never once asked me how I was doing. My pen glided across the final corporate acquisition contract sitting on my desk. $250,000. The complete buyout of my application by a major tech conglomerate was finalized. The fellowship gala was tomorrow night. The tech executive leading the acquisition would execute the buyout of my app, and simultaneously, the buyout of that pre-existing seed equity publicly. The trap was fully set. It was legally bulletproof. Decades of silent neglect were about to collide with a titanium wall of corporate law. The Palmer Event Center hummed with electric energy the following evening. Spotlights sliced through the darkened auditorium, illuminating tables filled with industry executives, venture capitalists, and brilliant engineers. I wore a tailored black suit, sitting calmly as the keynote speaker finished his address. The CEO of the acquiring conglomerate stepped up to the acrylic podium. His voice boomed through the massive speakers, officially announcing the $250,000 acquisition of my software architecture. The applause vibrated through the floorboards, a physical wave of validation washing over me. Then the CEO shifted the microphone. He opened a gold-embossed folder. He announced that the company was also executing the buyout of the original seed equity, honoring the advisors who made this architecture possible. He called Mark and Hannah Reynolds to the stage to receive a corporate check for $50,000. The air in the room stood still. Hannah covered her mouth with both hands, hot tears instantly spilling over her cheeks and ruining her makeup. Mark wrapped a shaking arm around her shoulders. His face flushed red with absolute, overwhelming shock. They walked up the carpeted steps trembling. The crowd gave them a standing ovation. They earned every single penny of that money. After the presentation, we stood in the lobby holding the massive novelty check. I pulled out my phone and snapped a crisp photograph of the 3 of us, their faces glowing with pure joy. I uploaded it to my social media accounts with a simple, devastating caption, celebrating my massive tech acquisition with my real family. I hit publish. 3 minutes later, my phone vibrated in my palm. Then it vibrated again, and again, and again. The screen lit up like a slot machine. 84 unread messages poured in within a 2-minute window. Valerie's name flashed rapidly across the glass. Jason's number popped up, calling back to back. The texts were erratic, frantic, greedy, and furious. How could you do this to us? That money belongs to this family. Brooke needs that money for her apartment. Answer the phone right now. I pictured them sitting in their overpriced resort room in Cabo, ignoring the ocean view, staring at a tiny glowing screen as they watched their invisible, disposable daughter hand $50,000 of life-changing money to complete strangers. The panic in their words was a potent, intoxicating drug. I powered the phone completely off. The screen went pitch black. Total. Suffocating silence. Narcissists feed on arguments. They survive on the drama of a screaming match, starving them of a reaction, denying them the closure of a fight is the ultimate psychological weapon. 3 days passed in absolute beautiful quiet. I assumed the humiliation had forced them into submission. I was wrong. The false peace shattered on a Tuesday afternoon. A red push notification flashed across my tablet screen. Motion detected at the front door. I tapped the alert. The high-definition live feed from a $30 hidden camera mounted in my old apartment hallway filled the screen. Valerie, Jason, and Brooke stood shoulder to shoulder outside my door. A massive orange U-Haul truck sat parked visibly through the hallway window. A man in a blue work shirt with a heavy drill, a local locksmith, stood in front of my deadbolt. Valerie wiped fake. Theatrical tears from her eyes, clutching a piece of my old stolen mail in her trembling fist. She was putting on an Oscar-worthy performance for the confused locksmith. My daughter is having a severe mental breakdown. Valerie sobbed, her voice echoing perfectly through the camera microphone. She abandoned this unit in a manic state. I am her mother. I need to secure her expensive computer equipment before she hurts herself or destroys it. Please, hurry. The locksmith nodded sympathetically. He raised his heavy drill. Metal ground against metal. The deadbolt splintered and gave way. Valerie pushed the wooden door open, her eyes wide with greedy anticipation. They stepped into an entirely empty room. Bare walls. Swept floors, no servers, no monitors, no furniture, nothing but dust motes floating in the afternoon sunlight. I sat comfortably on a plush leather sofa in my new downtown high-rise penthouse, sipping a mug of dark roast coffee. I did not panic. I did not rush over there to confront them. I calmly tapped the speed dial for the Austin Police Department, and then I called the regional manager of Apex Property Management. I had officially surrendered my lease to Apex 24 hours prior. I paid the exorbitant $3,000 lease break fee without blinking. I handed over the keys, transferring full legal ownership back to the corporation. And I specifically warned the property manager that my erratic, estranged family might attempt to access the unit to vandalize it. The police cruisers arrived in exactly 8 minutes. I watched the live feed from my tablet, resting my coffee mug on the glass table. 2 uniformed officers stepped into the doorway, hands resting cautiously on their belts. Valerie immediately puffed up her chest, stepping forward and pointing an aggressive finger at the officers. I am her mother, she demanded, her voice shrill and entitled. This is a private family dispute. My daughter told me I could move my other daughter into this apartment. You have no jurisdiction here. The property manager pushed his way past the officers, holding a digital tablet displaying the official building records. He did not look at Valerie with sympathy. He looked at her like dirt on his shoe. The tenant moved out yesterday. He stated, his voice booming with corporate authority. This is a vacant corporate unit owned by Apex Management. You bypassed our security, lied to a vendor, and destroyed our commercial deadbolt. You just committed felony commercial burglary. The color instantly drained from Jason's face, leaving him looking like a ghost. His jaw went completely slack. Brooke started sobbing loudly. The fake influencer bravado shattering instantly as a police officer grabbed her wrist, forcing her hands behind her back. The cold metal handcuffs clicked shut with a sharp, definitive snap. Valerie screamed my name at the ceiling, thrashing against the officer, pushing her toward the hallway. Her voice echoed through the empty apartment. Useless, pathetic, and utterly powerless. The local evening news ran a brief, humiliating segment the following night. 3 individuals arrested for commercial burglary and property damage in an upscale apartment complex. Brooke's heavily filtered, fake influencer image vanished from the internet, permanently replaced by a glaring, unedited county jail mugshot showing her mascara running down her face. My cell phone buzzed on the kitchen island, a collect call originating from the Travis County Jail. Jason's voice, pre-recorded and shaking with desperation, begged the automated system for bail money. I hit the red decline button. I permanently blocked the facility's incoming number. Apex Property Management pushed forward with maximum felony charges. I did not have to lift a single finger, hire a lawyer, or ever appear in a courtroom. The corporation acted as an impenetrable, ruthless shield. Valerie and Jason's remaining savings dissolved rapidly into criminal defense retainer fees and court costs. That evening, I sat at a massive, polished oak dining table. Hannah passed a steaming bowl of roasted vegetables across the wood. Mark poured a rich red wine into our glasses. Olivia laughed loudly at a terrible joke I made. The air in the room felt incredibly light, completely absent of the heavy, toxic tension I grew up breathing. The house smelled like fresh rosemary, garlic, and genuine warmth. For the first time in my entire 24 years on this earth, I was exactly where I belonged. The justice system is rarely swift, but when fueled by corporate property damage, it is merciless. The judge did not care about Valerie's theatrical tears in the courtroom. The court sentenced Brooke to 3 years of strict probation, mandated financial counseling, and 200 hours of community service. Jason and Valerie, desperate to avoid a prison cell, pled down to severe misdemeanor trespassing and property damage. The plea deal forced them to pay $14,000 in direct restitution to Apex Management to cover the door. The legal fees and the corporate time wasted. They avoided wearing jumpsuits, but the criminal record immediately destroyed Jason's lucrative corporate career. He was terminated from his firm pending the background check flag. 2 months later, a plain white envelope arrived in my penthouse mailbox. It had no return address. Inside was a 4-page handwritten letter from Valerie. She wrote endlessly about the sacred bond of blood. She wrote about the sacrifices of motherhood. She claimed she was just trying to protect her daughters, twisting her felony break-in into a bizarre act of maternal love. It was the desperate, hollow echo of a narcissist who finally realized they had permanently lost their primary source of supply. I held the papers in my hand. I did not feel a spike of adrenaline. I did not feel a heavy wave of guilt. I read the manic cursive letters, folded the paper perfectly in half, and walked over to my home office. I dropped the letter directly into the heavy-duty paper shredder. The steel blades chewed her excuses into worthless. illegible strips of confetti. When you grow up as the invisible child, the designated scapegoat in a toxic family system, you are systematically taught that endurance is the exact same thing as love. You are conditioned from a young age to believe that if you just stay quiet enough, if you demand little enough, and if you provide enough financial or emotional utility, they will eventually look at you with the pride you crave. But toxic family systems do not operate on love. They operate on a strict, ruthless hierarchy of utility. You are either the golden idol placed on the mantle, or you are the wooden pedestal forced to hold them up. I had to learn 3 brutal, uncompromising rules to survive and escape that house. Rule number 1, the absolute currency of family is consistent presence, not random genetics. Blood is nothing but a biological accident. Loyalty is a measurable action. Mark and Hannah Reynolds did not share a single drop of my DNA, but they shared their home, their resources, and their unwavering belief in my potential. They earned every single cent of that $50,000 because they invested their love into me when my stock was completely worthless to the very people who birthed me. You do not owe your success to the people who ignored your struggle. Rule number 2, absolute silence is the ultimate impenetrable boundary. Narcissists use your anger, your tears, and your explanations as fuel. When you argue with them, when you desperately try to defend your choices, you are handing them the exact emotional response they crave. You validate their toxic delusion that they still hold power over your mind. When you shut off the valve, when you walk away without a backward glance or a final screaming match, they suffocate in the void. Never explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Let your actions, your success, and the cold reality of the law do the speaking. Rule number 3, legal insulation is the ultimate defense mechanism. We are socially conditioned to handle things internally. Society tells us to keep our problems in the family. That is a manipulative trap designed exclusively to protect abusers from facing consequences. Surrendering my lease and letting a massive property management corporation press the felony charges entirely removed me from the emotional equation. I weaponized corporate law against family entitlement. Protect your physical assets. Build your legal walls high. And never let misplaced guilt trick you into opening the gate for predators wearing the mask of a parent. If you are sitting in a room right now, quietly shrinking your personality to fit into a family dynamic that only values your utility, I want you to ask yourself a very hard, uncomfortable question. If these people were not related to you by blood, would you even let them walk through your front door? Would you tolerate a stranger on the street speaking to you the way your own mother does? You are allowed to pack your bags in the dark. You are allowed to build an empire in complete silence. You are allowed to hand the keys to your hard-earned success to the people who actually helped you build the doors, while leaving the people who locked you out standing in the rain. Drop a door emoji in the comments below if you have had to finally close the door on toxic blood to protect your own peace. Hit the subscribe button for more stories on taking your power back, setting ironclad boundaries, and building the life you actually deserve. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are sitting there wondering, why did Megan wait so long to cut them off, or why in the world would she voluntarily pay a $3,000 fee to break a lease? She could have just walked away from, let's take a breath and break this down together. Because what you just watched wasn't just petty revenge, it was an absolute masterclass in psychological and financial self-defense. First, let us look at the psychology. Why do people endure toxic family dynamics for so long? It is easy to judge from the outside. But growing up in a narcissistic family system is exactly like playing a rigged slot machine. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement. Think about it: if a slot machine never pays out, you walk away. But if it occasionally spits out a few shiny coins, a rare compliment, a decent holiday dinner, a tiny crumb of affection, you stay glued to the stool, pulling the lever, draining your own resources. Megan wasn't naive. She was conditioned. She was addicted to the hope that if she just provided enough utility, she would finally hit the jackpot of her parents' love. But in toxic families, the house always wins. Once Megan realized that she didn't just walk away, she bought the casino. Now, let us talk about the street smart financial analysis. Because Megan executed 3 brilliant defensive strategies here. Number 1 is the audit strategy. Entitled people and manipulators absolutely hate paper trails. They rely on verbal demands, guilt trips, and the family shield. Megan countered this by living in the fine print. She didn't just hand her chosen family a random check for $50,000. She had legally drafted a 20% equity stake in her limited liability company years prior. It was legally bulletproof corporate compensation. Scammers hate details, and Megan's details were airtight. Number 2 is the buyout. Why pay a $3,000 lease break fee? Because sometimes investing in your freedom is the smartest purchase you will ever make. By formally surrendering that lease to a massive property management company, Megan transferred the liability. She didn't just pay a fee. She essentially paid $3,000 to hire a $1 billion corporate legal shield to fight her battles for her. And number 3 is building the case. Notice how Megan never argued with her mother at the apartment door. She let the $30 hidden camera do the recording. She let the property manager do the confronting. And she let the police do the arresting. She removed her emotions from the transaction entirely and let the system process the trash. Here is the final verdict. Toxic people do not respect your boundaries, but they are absolutely forced to respect the law. If someone only values you for what you can provide, you do not owe them a seat at your table when you finally succeed. Blood might make you relatives, but it does not give anyone a free pass to treat you like a disposable appliance. What is the most brilliant way you have ever legally protected your peace from a toxic person? Drop your street smart strategies in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button for more Real Talk breakdowns. And remember, your peace of mind is your most valuable asset. Protect it fiercely